SAITABAO Ole KANCHORY is the chief agent for Raila Odinga and Martha Karua in the just concluded presidential election. Chief agent for Azimio joins us in the studio. Good morning, SAITABAO.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having me this morning.
SAITABAO, this lady loves your name.
I mean, I do.
Eric, have you seen what you've just done?
Yeah.
The gentleman is beaming.
Completely. The two of them. Even Ndu has.
I started because there's a guest beaming. Do on the other hand, brimming.
What's in a name?
What's in a name?
They ask.
I'll tell you what the name means.
Please do.
So the name is actually a very significant name. In Ma, it means the person who delivers. Yeah, that is what SAITABAO means. It's a person who takes everything to the right conclusion.
Okay, so the naming processes within the Ma community. So, how do you name? Do you name after an ancestor? Do you name for a season? Do you name for the time of day? Do you name for some activity, some significance? How do you name?
So some of our names are random. Yeah, so many names are random. But in some cases, the names are significant. We don't name according to seasons or the time of day or other phenomena. But
No ancestral lineage following.
No. But in some cases, just depending on what the parents decide, because our naming is not based on this is a father, this is a mother, this is the mother of the father or any other consideration.
No,
it is purely a decision
by the parents.
The parents, yes.
So when they gave you that name, they were basically prophesying what you should become.
Yes, I guess my father and mother, prophesied and said, this man will take everything to its logical conclusion.
And deliver.
Yeah, this little man, will take everything to its logical conclusion.
And so it came to pass that Raila Odinga decided he'd like to run again after listening to the people, he said. And so it also came to pass that ODM nominated him, and other parties in Azimio also agreed with the ODM nominee, and they made him the Azimio One Kenya candidate. A secretariat was formed. The secretariat picked one SAITABAO to deliver the election for Raila Odinga as the chief agent. What is a chief agent?
So Latif, before I was named as a national chief agent for Azimio, I had been named as a board member of the Raila Odinga Presidential Campaign Board, which was also, at the time when I was named, we were only 14 of us nationwide. And therefore, it's been a great honor and privilege to serve my principal and to serve my country in the various capacities that he deemed fit to name me and appoint me to. So a national chief agent is basically the person that represents the principal or in all matters relating to the election with regard to the election body and all aspects relating to the election that the candidate himself cannot do in person. So you basically, as an agent and being the chief agent, you take the position and place of your principal, who is the candidate. And whenever you're required, where the principal cannot go in person, you are the one who's supposed to go in person. Where the principal is not cannot say anything in person, you become basically the legal clone of the principal in all matters relating to the election. And so therefore, an agent, basically, a chief agent, first of all, is an agent. I kept saying, there is really nothing so much chief about agent. You're basically an agent. And being an agent, you are an appointee. And you are supposed to be, you're basically supposed to do everything which the principal can do, but which is unable to do because of one reason or another. You become the surrogate.
Yeah.
You become the sidekick.
Okay.
Yes.
So do the other agents across the country who are representing the candidate at the polling station work under you?
Yes. So as a chief agent, you're mandated to appoint all other agents. So we had agents at the county level for purposes of coordination purely, because the election of president is not held at the county level. But for coordination purposes, we had chief agents at the county level. We had, and also it's within the law to have a county chief agent. We also had chief agents at the constituency level. These are constituency chief agents. They're basically tallying agents. And then we had polling station agents, across the country. And so therefore all of them, basically became now appointees of the national chief agent, having been, mandated by the principal so to do.
Okay. It's interesting. So how many agents? So you had the 47, of course,
Yes.
county. You had 290 constituency.
Yes.
Did you have 46,229 polling station agents?
So we actually had a database of about 161,000 agents. And because of the nature of the coalition that we were under, we had so many interests in the selection of agents.
Yeah.
And so to the last minute, we kept having issues of different parties, bringing different lists of agents. But we had in total, from our records now, we had about 62,000 agents across the country, and those are the people that we have ended up paying, for carrying out their agency work across the country.
Were they present in all the polling stations?
So we had some challenges. We had some challenges which were partly internal and partly external, and some things in terms of our internal mechanisms did not work very effectively. With the benefit of hindsight, there's a lot that we could have done differently. We tried to micromanage a very grand exercise from headquarters here in Nairobi, and it ended up being a very serious logistical nightmare in terms of appointment of agents, in terms of deployment, in terms of supervision, in terms of just the letters even reaching the agents, in terms of payments. And now with the benefit of hindsight, we realize that it is practically impossible to manage such a huge exercise from one central location. We had wanted to do that because of issues of accountability, coordination, and basically transparency, so that all agents can be channeled through one place. But now with the benefit of hindsight, we could have done it differently. Yeah.
What do you think happened as a result of the issues that you're now talking about, as a result of those challenges that you're speaking of? What do you think happened because of that?
So what do I think happened in terms of the consequences?
Yes.
So the consequences of that is that we ended up not having, agents everywhere, and some of our agents got there a bit late. We got because of the changing lists, and I can tell you the lists kept changing because of the interest involved. We would appoint agents in a place, and a different candidate comes and says, "These are not my people. I cannot work with these ones." And night meetings were held even on the 8th, where lists were changing, and I think you might have heard some people saying we have not been paid.
Yeah.
But it's because of those late changes in lists, and people bringing new lists every day and by the day. And because of that, we ended up having a bit of a difficult situation in terms of just even the identification of who exactly are the proper agents. And so therefore, you find the agents that we had trained being kicked out by the candidates, some of the candidates refusing to work with the agents we had trained. Some of the candidates bringing their own agents and imposing them on us very late in the day, and we had basically very little choice, and we accepted them. And so you find because of that push and pull, some agents were deployed very late, even in polling stations in some parts of the country. Some agents did not have proper training on how to report back to us. and so those challenges were there. And also because of that late, the issue of the late presentation of lists, even to the last minute, including the morning of the election, people were still saying, these are the agents you must work with. And so
on the day
of the election.
Wow.
On the day of the election. And so, some of those agents worked, and we ended up, having people in polling stations that we had not even included in our database.
Okay.
And because of we had a very strict payment mechanism, which was meant to ensure that only the agents that we have listed are actually paid, because the history of this, the agents' management history in this country is checkered with a lot of, improprieties in terms of payments and a lot of complaints. And by the way, you will be happy to know that as soon as I was named together with my team, one of the things we said and made clear very categorically is that we will not touch any money. Yeah, we said that as the national chief agent, myself and my team of 4 deputies, we said we will not be involved in any financial matters. Okay, and so the finances were being handled purely by the secretariat and by other independent persons who are not part of the agents, the agents team. And so we had put very strict payment verification requirements. And because of that, we were looking at the ID number, the names, and it was all of it was going through Safaricom. And because of that, some of the people who we later were given, whose names we didn't have, whose ID numbers we didn't have, phone numbers we didn't have, could not therefore be verified through our process. And so we are still receiving those lists, and we are verifying and saying, we're validating and saying, if you worked, you must be paid.
Yeah.
And I think we are the only party, perhaps, that has even ended up paying people who didn't work, because as long as you were in our database,
you got paid.
There's something I've heard you say. I just need a little clarification, if you don't mind. The office that you hold, together with those who are your deputies, together with the secretariat, you determined how to select, elect, choose agents.
Yes.
And did I hear you correctly to be saying also that thereafter, candidates whom you had in the various counties would then come up with their own agents?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a laid down criteria for determining who is a suitable agent?
So yes, and that's a very good question, because we had such good plans. And they say the road to hell.
Strategy was solid.
Yes, so we had a criteria, a very lengthy criteria, very strict.
And were the candidates aware of this criteria?
So they were aware, because the first thing we did, even as soon as we were appointed as a national chief agents, we had a meeting with all our candidates. Okay, not all, but some of our candidates, just to sensitize them on how we want to go about this. And so we told them, this is the criteria for appointment, for identification and recruitment of agents. An agent must be someone who is loyal. An agent must be someone who, is vigilant. Is someone who is trainable. Is someone who. We had all those requirements, and they were aware. But politics is a very fluid.
Did you, for instance, select the agents in the various places where you had candidates with the consultation of the candidates in that particular?
Yes, we did. We did. But you see,
did they forward the names in the first place? Because they're the ones who would know the sort of people who would meet that criteria in the area that they were vying for.
Yes. So yes, we did. Moga, we did. We asked all our agents from MCA to governor to give us names. Okay, and they did. But now when the eventual names were presented to them, you will find one person saying, they can't work with the agents of the other person. Our assumption was that the best way is to have everybody give names. We select from a pool of names, yeah. But then you find someone saying, I cannot work with this senator. The senator is an Azimio senator, and the governor says, this one I cannot work with. Or you have 2 opposing Azimio candidates, and we made it clear to them, we made it clear to them, these are presidential agents. You guys can appoint your own agents.
You can deal with your own
With your own
constituency,
agents.
MCA,
but,
Senate
but
agents.
many candidates made it about themselves. And that became a very serious problem. So many candidates made it about themselves. They forgot that we were running a presidential agency system. And they were saying, no, you must work with mine. You must work with mine. And if you don't work, some of them were even ejecting our agents from polling stations, ejecting physically. So we had issues.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that is behind us. We have, despite all that, we were able to get as much from the agents management system, that as much as we needed. Yeah, and so despite the challenges that we had, our agents management system still gave us enough to show what exactly happened in this
to
election.
show you what was happening.
Yes.
So 62,000.
And Muga, let me say something else. And you guys, there is something that Kenyans need to know. You know, this agents business, I pray that a time will come when we will not require agents for an election. You know, it's a peculiarity of Kenya and other, democracies that are.
City, just give him the term.
Listen, brother.
They're
Let's
called
simplify
third
this
what?
thing. Third world banana republics.
Mostly
found on this
I don't think that of our great nation. I don't think that of our great nation, my brother City. I don't. I personally have a lot of faith in this country. But the fact that
Why do we need agents?
the reason we need agents is because we are a country of thieves and people who basically just don't give a damn about transparency, about doing the right thing. You see, Latif, you even if you have 10 billion shillings in a certain bank, you don't have an agent in that bank to watch over your money. Why? Because you trust the systems put by that bank.
Yeah.
A time must come in this country where we can trust the institution and the body charged with managing an election to the point where everybody goes to vote and goes home. You do not need to deploy 100,000 people just to watch your votes, hawk-eyed people to watch over votes night and day, just because you know if you don't, it will be stolen. Yet we have IEBC that is highly resourced from the public coffers in billions of shillings that is supposed to ensure that the election is transparent, it is efficient, it is accountable. Why do we need agents? We need agents because IEBC cannot be trusted.
So why can't you trust IEBC, SAITABAO? I mean, IEBC is a creature of the
opponents are
Constitution.
thieves.
IEBC is a creature of the Constitution, right? IEBC is heavily oversighted by Parliament. IEBC is required to do everything according to the law.
Yeah.
Laws are written and in black and white. So why can't we trust IEBC?
Eric,
We can't.
the question
City will tell you why.
question that has been asked often is, do you send wolves to shepherd sheep?
So who's the wolf and who's the sheep here?
Here, they interchange roles from time to time, depending on what's happening.
Parliament, IEBC.
Parliament, IEBC.
But also the answer to that question is history tells us you can't trust IEBC. History alone. History is a very good teacher.
But is it IEBC or the people who've been mandated to run the IEBC? Because there's IEBC, the policymakers, commissions, and whatever. Then there's the secretariat. And these fellows function fairly well on a day. I mean, if you look at just the number of elections and by-elections that we have, let's talk about by-election. Rarely do we get hitches. You have a by-election, people go through it, somebody's elected, life goes on. Same IEBC. The conduct that we speak of, every time we have voted, we all come here and say, it was a good process. We like it. That's IEBC. And things run smoothly.
I have an answer, City.
Yes.
Your answer is very simple. In a by-election, if you're electing an MC, an MP, whoever it is, a governor, they do not have the resources to be able to compromise the system. That's your answer. It is about how much are you paying to compromise the system. And that is why these other elections tend to be fairly free. Because Latif is running for MCA.
Ndu for MP.
Or someone else is running for MP. They don't have billions of shillings to bribe, to compromise the system. But as long as you're running for President of the Republic of Kenya, the stakes are so high. And because we in this country have put, the money has become some kind of, a demigod. Wherever the money goes, there also goes the truth.
It's an object of worship.
And that is, yes, and that is the problem. That is actually the reason why a presidential election has not been free and fair in this country. It is the amount of compromise. It is the price.
That the candidates.
The
so
price.
the problem is the candidates, not the institution.
Well, the institution should not be compromisable.
But is it?
Let's take a break. 28 minutes to 8, Kenya's biggest conversation. SAITABAO OLE KANCHORY is the national chief agent for Azimio, and the candidate, Raila Odinga and Martha Karua. He's here with us in the studio. He's telling us what happened on the in the general election, especially the presidential election. What happened at Bomas? He'll give us the details. Keep it here for that.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Kenya's biggest conversation, SAITABAO OLE KANCHORY, national chief agent for the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition presidential candidate, Raila Odinga. Hey, that's a long one. Huh? He's here with us in the studio. We're talking about the agent, why we have a chief agent, the agent network across the country, and the importance of it, and telling us you hope that one day we get to a point where we don't need to have an agent at the polling station.
Yes.
The most important place where the election happens is that polling station. You ended up with 62,000 agents across the country, some at several polling stations. Of course, we had agents at Bomas at constituency and county level. So what was the brief for your agents, wherever they were? Let's start with the ones at the polling station. What are they supposed to do?
Eric, you forgot to mention also, much as the title is long, you forgot to mention now that SAITABAO KANCHORY is a defender of the Constitution of Kenya. He's a Thomas Sankara and Che Guevara of our time. He's a man who will not call a thief the fifth. You needed to put that in the title.
What
The deliverer of rain.
Yes.
At this point, it can be anything.
This, I think,
But anyway,
the University of Nairobi terms, in the times when some of us were there, he was a comrade.
kabisa.
This is it.
So,
Comrade.
kabisa. So, back to your question.
What is the brief for an agent?
The brief for an agent is simple. The brief for an agent is be vigilant, watch over the votes, ensure that the votes are properly tallied, cooperate with the IEBC officials as much as possible, be firm, ensure the law and the legal processes are followed. You're dealing with human beings. Human beings can be fickle and fishy, but allow them to do their work within the law. Ultimately, report back to us the results as you witness them. Report the forms back to us as you receive them. And yes, take care of the principal's interests. That is the brief.
You are the principal's representative at that station.
Yes.
So voting happens, agent is present. Agent is seeing, that is Eric has walked in. Eric has been identified. Eric has not been identified. What happens? He's there, he's observing. Polls close. Counting starts. Agent is present in the room. The form is filled. In this particular case, 34A.
The votes are counted first.
Votes are counted, right?
Yes.
Votes are counted, and then the result is announced by the polling station, the presiding officer. And the agent is present, witnessing all this. Then the presiding officer puts down the result on the form 34A. Presiding officer signs, agents sign. Must they sign?
Well, they should sign. If they're present, they should sign. And if they have an objection, they should indicate their objection.
On the form?
Yes. So ideally, all agents should sign. But if you do not agree, in some cases, you find presiding officers who are deliberately, even being mischievous and kicking out agents from the polling station. And when it comes to the final, result, they want the agent to sign.
Yeah.
So you cannot sign something that you have not been part of.
So you indicate your objection then?
No, you don't sign
You
because
don't
you are
sign.
not present.
Okay.
The signing means you are present. You will note, for example, that I refuse to sign the form 34C. And by the way, I think in the course of the day today or soon after that, I will share with the nation the entire episode that happened during that time when I declined to sign the form, because fortunately enough, one of the persons who was present in the room recorded everything that happened. And you will hear Wafula Chebukati refusing to share the results with me, just for me to see them before I sign them.
Right.
You will hear Chebukati refusing to answer very basic questions. Yeah, you will hear him in his own voice saying he has no obligation to share
To share
results
the
with the
results with
national
you.
chief agent.
Before you sign the
So
form.
who else does he share the results with?
Okay.
You
You're
know,
going
so
to give us that.
I will give you that.
And
It's
bef-
about 11 minutes.
And that's, in fact, that's why I'm building up to so that
Yeah.
you can tell us what happened at
Yes.
Bomas. So your agent on the ground, if they're present in the room and they witness the counting and the filling of the form 34A, they sign or they don't sign, or they sign with indicating their objection. Do they also witness when this KIMS kit is transmitting? Do they witness the transmission of this form 34A?
So the way they had put they had played out the role of agents this time, and because of the number of agents that were deployed in any given polling station, it was not possible for all the agents to witness, but whenever a kit would fail, then they would witness that there is a failure of the technology.
Okay.
But in terms of the actual, and we had situations in this case where KIMS kits were not properly identifying, voters. So you find a KIMS kit identifying a lady who is clearly, culturally from Turkana, and it's saying Wanjiro or Wamboi, and it's been a ridiculous
But let me
process.
ask this question. I don't understand. How would you witness the KIMS kit transmitting? How? I thought the KIMS kit does what it does, and you would know it, that it has done its job if whatever it was transmitting reaches the destination that was intended. But if I were to witness it, what would I be seeing?
So the KIMS kit does two things. It does the identification.
Yes.
So I think that was the question I was trying to answer, unless I didn't understand. I didn't get it correctly. The part of identification.
Yes, that you can witness.
That you can witness.
Yes.
But now the question that you're asking is at the point of, because it does two things. It does the identification, then it does the transmission.
The transmission.
So at the point of transmission, then of course you can witness the taking of the picture.
You'll observe.
You'll observe and say, this is actually the picture. And ideally, the presiding officer is supposed to show you, is this the same document that you have all seen?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they will
Press send.
press send as you observe. So
Okay.
that is the answer.
That is how it is observed.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. So, I think we've had this conversation, I don't know how many times now since the 9th of August. But then the question is, if everybody has confirmed that this is an actual picture of what you have all agreed on at that particular center before it is now transmitted. We then also heard cases, and I think you mentioned some of them yourself, where whatever then found its way to Bomas of Kenya was different from the picture that everybody had agreed on that was being sent. How would that have happened?
So that happened apparently, now from the information in our possession, because our opponent, the UDA party, had a means to illegally intercept some of these forms from select polling stations, and we have sworn affidavits in court, in the Supreme Court, indicating how they were able to do that. Because essentially what happened is that they had a system, in the underworld of technology, they call it a black server, whereby anything that IEBC could do, they could do. It is ridiculous when you hear it, but it happened. It is stranger than fiction, but it is real. And we have the evidence to show that essentially, UDA was an extension of IEBC.
So when the results get to Bomas, you are at Bomas.
Yes.
So now take us through. There's the portal which is available to everybody, and I keep saying even somebody in Kazakhstan had access, and they still have access to the information on the portal. And then there's a physical result arriving at Bomas. What was happening on the floor of Bomas?
So what was happening on the floor of Bomas? We were taken through. We were taken down the garden path of validation, of validation of a very illegal exercise. At some point, I call it out and I say, this is nonsense. And at some point, I was a sole voice.
Is that where the utterances that are attributed to you with
Yes.
reference to a crime scene?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
what led to it.
You know, so I think I've been a very extremely efficient agent, and I think everybody must admit that I was the first person to, you know, even when nobody else would listen to me, you know, and everybody else was thinking, you know, I had garnered sufficient information, sufficient evidence to show that all was not well at Bomas, that criminal activities were happening, because I also had my people on the ground, and I had, you know, a team that was surveilling to see what was happening, including even internal intelligence to tell me what was happening. And when I say that Bomas of Kenya had become a crime scene, is because I had already gotten information of how there was manipulation of the system. I had gotten information of how the even service providers, independent service providers who had been hired by IEBC, were clandestinely being used as agents of UDA to manipulate the election. I had already garnered sufficient information of how the agents, or you know, the UDA agents on the floor of Bomas were using gadgets, you know, to effectively, you know, change results. And let me answer that question also by saying, it was not just about intercepting forms and replacing them. In some cases, when they realized that was not enough, they pulled down forms that were already there. So depending on what time you got into the portal, you'll get different forms. So they pulled down some forms, and we're going to you know, this country will be in for a lot of.
I have to ask you this question at this point in time.
There will be very serious.
Let me just ask, because what you're hearing, okay. Are you allowed to say these things? I thought these are the things which are going to be said in court.
So you know, we are making general. These are matters that are in the public domain. These are matters of immense and intense public interest.
So what is going to the court is not what you're saying. There are details that you cannot talk about.
You know, I cannot talk about the conclusion. I cannot say that this is what the court will decide. But I can say what is before the court.
Carry on.
Yes. I can say what is before the court. I am not prosecuting the case, as it were. But it is also, this is a matter of public interest, and therefore I'm just stating what our case in the Supreme Court is. And by the way, you will note that I'm not one of the lawyers representing the parties, and that is because I'm one of the witnesses.
Okay.
And actually, you know, I am, you know, in terms of the hierarchy and pecking order of the party, I am number 3. It is Raila Odinga, Martha Karua, then SAITABAO, KANCHORY, in that order. and so therefore, all these senior council you are seeing, we are the bosses of this.
Even if you say so yourself.
Yes.
Or if you don't.
Back to Bomas, SAITABAO. Okay.
Yeah.
So what is this mischief that was taking place there? If and Ndu has asked this a number of times, returning officer from constituency arrives at Bomas carrying Form 34B, which contains information that has been gathered and tallied from all the 34 A's in that constituency and signed. Comes with it to Bomas, plus the 34 A's. So what mischief is then taking place here? Are you saying that the 34B that arrives at Bomas is not the one that left the constituency?
So the first thing that Chebukati did, Eric, is he delayed the arrival of returning officers. You know, I was at Bomas throughout. I was practically sleeping for less than 2 hours a day. You know, I was at Bomas from the beginning to the end. You know, taking a nap in my car and going back. You know, Chebukati, the first 2 nights, delayed the arrival of returning officers just to see what he needs to do. And you will note that reports have been made in all the media houses and media, you know, in all print, electronic, and other media, showing how election officials were caught meddling and fiddling with election results across the country. And so what Chebukati was doing, he was giving it time to see what do we need to do to ensure that the results that are arriving agree with the public portal, because he already knew that the public portal had been manipulated. And Eric, when these people arrived, the returning officers, some of them very innocent, they were given different forms and they were told, bring the ones you have. These are the ones you're going to present.
SAITABAO, did you see these things happening?
Yes, we saw these things happen.
How does one essentially delay a returning officer from coming to Bomas? What do you say? You pick up the phone and say, don't come today, come tomorrow?
It is on public record, Ndu. It is on public record, you know, that elections were done on the 9th. The night of the 9th, going to the 10th, there was nobody at Bomas. The second night, there was nobody at Bomas.
And there are people who could have easily shown up at
Elections
Bomas.
had been concluded in many parts of the country.
Right.
On the 9th, the night of the 9th. He was very clear that, and then on the night of the 10th, he told us, all of us as chief agents, we are not going to allow any returning officers onto the floor until morning.
Okay.
Yeah. Even the ones who were ready were told to wait. Yeah. And that was, you see, now the whole scheme is unraveling, where we're saying, how is it that 2 nights, 2 days, a whole 48 hours after the elections, there's not even a single returning officer, even just the ones from, Dagoretti South, who is next door, or the one from Langata, who is within the
Stone throw.
Kibra or whatever. And that became very apparent because, I am on record, and I'm really happy that I have been very consistent. I am on record complaining about the recruitment of even those returning officers. I have done a very lengthy letter to IEBC, which is now part of our evidence before the Supreme Court, indicating how, even in terms of recruitment of returning officers, there was already a scheme. There was already a skewing of the election. And you will see, even from the evidence, because this is a letter I did way before the election, saying how close to more than half of the returning officers were highly, there was a lot of ethnic imbalance. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of partisanism in terms of deployment. There was skewed deployment into strategic places for people who had an assignment to meddle with the election. But I want you guys to go back to your own records, because the media houses also, that we say that Kenya has a short memory, but I blame it a little bit on the media because they don't seem to go back to the archives. Go back to your archives and you will see clearly how there was a deliberate delay in the process. That delay was misused and abused to come up with a certain result in this election.
But, everything that you say, one could argue is conjecture because, right, there was a delay, but must one impute nefarious intent? I mean, delays occur. There may be a reason. Even if the chairman of the IEBC doesn't give you sufficient reason, could there not be more than one explanation for the delay? Number one. Number two, if you look at the processes that we are speaking of, everything you've said is what I would take as your interpretation of what was happening. But does that constitute
mischief?
Yes. And
what were your agents telling you? I mean, what was happening at the constituency level, let's say on Wednesday? Had the returning officers finished all the elections that they needed to tally by Wednesday? Remember, we're talking about 6. It's the same returning officer dealing with 34As, 35As, 36As, 37A, 38A.
So at the tallying center, yes, they were dealing with other elections, including the elections of MP and so on. But remember that the election of president, even at the polling station, was the first one to be announced and tallied, tabulated and transmitted. Okay? So the returning officer at the tallying center electronically would receive all these results from all the polling stations. And they were required to tabulate their own Form 34B and transmit it electronically to IEBC National Tallying Center. None of them did that. None of them did that.
At the level of the constituency, they were not required to take an image.
No,
they were supposed to tabulate and then transmit.
Tabulate and transmit. But they were supposed to tabulate, transmit, and then eventually when they receive the physical forms, they sign and now put it in the electronic form in terms of now that image that you're talking about, the picture, after it has been signed by our chief agents and so on. All this could have been done. There's no place where results for the election of president, in terms of the actual process, took more than, even in Kakamega where there were serious delays, these elections were ended. They were concluded before midnight on the 9th. They were concluded in terms of being counted. We are talking about a polling station of 400 people, 500 people. There's no polling station that counted votes for 2 days or for 1.5 days. So all of them were done. All of them, you're talking about a constituency. So a constituency tallying center is within a certain radius of every polling station. Some further than others, but within a certain reasonable. I mean, even in North Hall or Turkana,
yes.
in terms of getting to the polling station, there is no polling station in this country that will take 2 days or 1.5 days or a whole day just to get to the to the tallying center. And so, but the important thing is this, it is not, like I said, it is the work of IEBC to create confidence in the process. There is a reason why the law, and in this case, the Constitution of Kenya, says that elections must be conducted efficiently. Okay? Efficiency also is about how fast do you deliver these results.
Yes.
Elections must be, the results must be announced promptly. These are not my requirements. These are the requirements of the Constitution of Kenya. The reason for that is because the delays historically have been used. Delays historically, City, have been used to manipulate elections. We all remember as well as, we possibly can, Tharaka Nithi, waiting, Tharaka Nithi coming last just to influence. And we to this day, we all know that Tharaka Nithi doesn't have 600,000 voters. But it was kept, as an ace in the, as a
sleeve.
Yes, yes. And it was used strategically.
The silver bullet.
As a silver bullet to just come up with, to manipulate, to interfere, to influence and meddle.
As you
So
conclude,
the delays that we're saying
because we have 2
are
minutes,
not innocent. Yes.
because we have 2 minutes. As you conclude,
You haven't even allowed me to speak about, the entire thing. I hope you give me an extra 3 minutes.
and then, what is the entire thing?
Listen, you are talking about the technology, Eric.
Yes.
I want you to go back to your records and see how IEBC through Wafula Chebukati and Gulie, particularly Professor Yakub Gulie, guaranteed the nation in the full glare of the media that there will not even be one kit that will fail. I want you to go back to those records.
Oh, we remember it
Yes.
full well.
And I kept saying, what if it fails? And I say, it will not fail. It will not fail. Why did they give us a guarantee that they could not live up to? Did they fail? And where did they fail? Why didn't they fail in Uasin Gishu? Why didn't they fail in other places? They only failed in the Azimio strongholds. It was intentional. It was deliberate. It was meant to attain a certain result. And it did. In this case, it frustrated our voters. It denied our voters their constitutional right under Article 38 to cast their vote. It was an extremely heinous plot to interfere with this election.
How many people do you estimate did not turn up to vote because of this?
So the voter turnout in many of these places, and the kits failed, not just in Kakamega and Makueni. They also failed in parts of Mombasa, They failed in Taita Taveta. And the voter turnout basically in those areas was highly suppressed. And
Do you have the numbers?
I do not know because I don't have a crystal ball to say these are the people who will have voted.
could have
why
come
not.
out to vote,
But
why not?
constitutionally, even one person who is turned away because of a fault that is not their own
Is enough?
Is enough. Yeah, because it is a constitutional right. This is not just any right. It is a right under the Bill of Rights.
And our elections are won by 50 plus 1.
Plus one.
Do you have somebody who has said, I had come to the polling station earlier, polling center earlier. I was told the KIMS kit is not working. I got frustrated. I went home. I didn't hear that the thing is working, so I never came back.
We have even IEBC itself, media reports showing how people were frustrated 5 hours in Kakamega, and they went back home. And we do not have any. We do not have the evidence of people coming back because Kenyans, Eric, in this country, it is not an obligation to vote, and we don't have professional voters in Kenya where it is your work to vote. So when you've been frustrated to vote, I mean, what will make you come back? But let me say the last thing, because you said I have 2 minutes. These elections, people are saying Raila Odinga rejected the results. They're saying, Azimio rejected. This election was rejected by IEBC before even Raila Odinga rejected. IEBC operates through commissioners. 4 out of 7 commissioners have rejected the results announced by Chebukati. So this is a very unique situation where IEBC itself has rejected the results declared. So this is not a normal occurrence. It is an extremely unusual occurrence where the body constitutionally charged with running elections has itself come out very clearly to reject, the conduct of the election.
SAITABAO, thank you very much. We're actually right in the middle, bang in the middle of the news. Already Aseto is transmitting the news. But thank you for coming. I think I want to ask this final question because everybody is asking that even on social media. Your opponents are saying they were busy, they were actively guarding and monitoring what was happening at Bomas in terms of the results that were arriving and the tallying and the verification exercise, while you were busy just walking up and down, making noise and calling this a crime scene.
So our opponents were busy doing what they were doing. They were busy manipulating the results, and we were busy calling them out. So they had no problem of us stealing the election, and that is why they could afford to appear to be doing what they were doing, because they didn't have anybody stealing their votes. So if you have a thief in your house and you are being asked to keep quiet, Eric, will you do it? We had a thieves right inside IEBC. Were we supposed to keep our cool and pretend that nothing was going wrong?
Okay. We hear you. SAITABAO KANCHORY, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for coming this morning.
Thank you, guys.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your